Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. For the people who is off on the weekends, we have one more day and then we're off. So I'm going to get right into it. I started reading, I believe on Tuesday, either Monday or Tuesday. I started reading out of the book of First Samuel. And the first thing I thought about when I started reading, I'm like, wow. When we ask God for things, He truly give them to us. But a lot of times we have to be patient. Sometimes we just don't get it right away. And we just have to have the faith that He will give us the things that we ask for. But be careful, a lot of times be careful what you ask for because you just may just get it. Okay? Um, so I was reading out of the book of First Samuel, and I had wrote some notes here. If you see me, I keep looking down. And it is the story of Hannah. Um, Hannah was married to Elkanah. I'm telling you, I'm trying to pronounce these names. But Elkanah had two wives. He had Hannah and he had Peninnah. I'm trying to pronounce it. He had two wives. So Hannah, her womb was closed, meaning she couldn't have any children. She was barren. And Peninnah, she had a couple of kids from Elkanah. But Peninnah used to taunt Hannah, stating, "Oh, you can't have children. Our husband loved me more than he loves you." So Hannah, what she did, she had went to the tabernacle and she was praying and she was crying out to God, asking God to give her a son, to open up her womb. She wanted to have children, especially when you're married, you have a husband. If it's you guys' decision, or you just want to have a kid, you just want to have children. So that's what she was crying out to God for. She's like, Lord, she was like, if you give me a son, if you open up my womb, I would give my son back to you. And let me tell you, meaning I'll give him back to you. I don't know how many people would give up their children. This reminds me of the story of Abraham. Abraham and Sarah was in their elderly age. When I was reading this is what I was thinking about, Abraham and Sarah. And that's out of the book of Genesis. I believe it's chapter 22 that it came out of. And Abraham and Sarah just could not have children. And by that time, they was up in age. They were older. And so Sarah was saying, go ahead and sleep with the maid. Concubine, maid. Those are the names that they use. Go ahead and sleep with her. And she did. The maid, she did get pregnant and she had a son. And so God had tested Abraham and was like, well, you're going to have to give Isaac up. Your first child, your only child, your first son, your only son. You're going to have to give him up as a sacrifice. And so Abraham was so faithful to God. He did. He was saying, okay, he was taking Isaac up and to God and offer him up as a sacrifice. But instead, God had sacrificed an animal. He had tested Abraham, but Abraham was so faithful. The thing is, the question is, what would you give up for God? What is a sacrifice you would give up? Most of us would be like, my children? Oh my God. We would have been like, God, just kill me. Because that's a hard thing, especially when you really love your children. I'm saying that. You may say, oh my God, if you really love your children, I do love. Let me tell you, there is some parents out there that do not love their children. They hate them, or they try to, they kill them because of one spouse. They know that they love their child so much, and they just try to hurt the other party. But there are some parents out there that just don't care for their children. But the question is, like I said, what would you give up? So going back to the story about Hannah, when she was crying out to God, I guess she was crying out so loud, a man had approached her and was like, lady, are you drunk? Like, what are you doing all this screaming and hollering? She was like, no, I'm not drinking. I'm not drunk. I'm just crying out to God, And he said, you know what? God is going to give you exactly what you want. I can imagine what he was saying. Just be patient, be faithful, continue to cry out to God, and you're going to get what you want. And so she did. God had opened up her womb, and she became pregnant with her son. And she did. She gave him back to God. She left him at the tabernacle, and he became a helper to God, and he also became an assistant. He assisted the priest Eli. Not only that, Hannah, God had blessed her so well that Hannah ended up having, I believe, 7 children. And then after that, Peninnah, the other wife who already had 3 or 4 children, her womb was closed. She couldn't have any more children. So be careful how you treat people. Not that God want to be so hard on us, but be careful how you treat people, okay? And if you need anything, if you want anything, just have the faith, cry out to God. You will get it, trust me. But the thing is, you can't pray for it at 5 o'clock and expect God to deliver it to you at 5:01. He may not give it to you when you want it. I'm hoping you heard this before. This is the old saying, but he is right on time. Excuse me. So just be faithful. Just be true. But think about it. What would you sacrifice for God? Many of us, we go to work for 8 hours out of the day. Sometimes it's more than 8 hours. And then we get home. Of course, you'd be a little tired because if you have children, especially, you have to make sure they have eaten, make sure they have done their homework, make sure they get a bath. And you just be tired, especially if you're on your feet all day. Even if you sit down at your job all day, you just be tired. 8 hours is a lot. We spend a lot of time at work. We spend more time at work than we do at home. But then again, we can't go to church. People are like, oh my God, going to church? Got to sit there for 2 hours, 3 hours. But you could work for 8 hours, 8+ hours. And then if you're doing overtime, you're giving the people on the job, and yes, you're making more money, but guess who's giving you the strength to do all those hours? God is. He's giving you the strength. So please make time for God. You can go to Bible study. Bible study is like an hour and a half. You've never, tell me a day where you've ever spent 8+ hours at church. Probably never, unless you've been to a shut-in. Which a shut-in, we stay at the church all night and we just pray, cry out to God. Because trust me, we need it. I know I need it. I need to cry out to God because I'm asking him for so many things. But listen, even if I'm tired, I'm like, you know what? I have to push myself. To go to Bible study or church, because I work all day, all week, and then come home. And I'm like, you know what? I have to give God some time. I have to. So like I said, think about it. The question is, what would you sacrifice? I love you guys and have a nice day.